Hi, I'm Ron Roach, the guy who drew Armageddonquest. Armageddonquest, in case you've never heard of it. My friend Dave Baxter asked me to do a personal video for a fundraiser he's working on, so I guess I have to do it. This is my Danish wife, Mariana.
Hi.
That's because we live in Copenhagen, which is a very nice town, and as you can see, the sun is shining, so it's not always freezing in Denmark. But I'm supposed to talk about Armageddonquest. I have some visual aids here to help me. The character of Tazio was not Tazio at first, but I first drew him when I was 20 years old. I'm much older than that now. But I think this is one of the very first drawings of the son of Satan. It was in the Marvel Comics superhero genre that this kid was the son of Satan himself, but was in uproar against the bad guy, and he was the hero. And so he used to run around hell, if you can see the picture there, fighting with demons and monsters and doing good deeds. And he would go from our world to hell and back. And then, after many years, I tried to write it as a novel. In fact, I'll show you here. It was many pages I wrote in novel form. Before it ever really gelled, I was never quite satisfied with it, never quite finished it as a novel. I had short stories that were okay. But at one point, I've always been interested in comic books. I ended up drawing a comic book episode of The Son of Satan. As you can see, this is on a mimeograph paper, which I did when I was in the university for a short story writing course. So, let me see. Where's one of the better pages? Okay. Yeah, there's Tazio dealing with a monster. It's like right out of Jack Kirby. It's real Marvel Comics genre. At one point, I sent a copy of this to Marvel Comics because I was interested in them, and I never got any response. I was thinking maybe I could do a Son of Satan comic book, but I never had any response. But about 6 months later, the Son of Satan comic book was published by Marvel, having a lot of the same ideas. And I was thinking, oh crap, they've stolen my story. I don't know if they did. It could be they don't do that. But I also saw that from the Son of Satan comic, it was a piece of shit. It was really bad. And so was mine. it was just not interesting. So I sort of was discouraged by that and dropped the character of Tazio for a while. His name, by the way, comes from the Italian race car driver Tazio Nuvolari, who I just thought was one of the coolest guys in the world. But then I started doing comic books, other comic books, and at one point I was doing, I was a prison guard in Monroe, Washington State.
Why was you a prison guard?
Because I was a school teacher, and then there were no more jobs, and there was that prison up in the hill that I would never, ever go work at, but they had jobs, and everybody in town at some point ended up working in that prison. But it was an okay job, state job, with all the benefits. So I started doing comic books about it. Here's, which one is this? Slammer Comics, yeah. And that character there is Emmanuel, the 17th incarnation of Christ, which I thought was kind of a cool idea. And he's locked into the prison because he was doing anti-American demonstrations against nuclear weapons, that sort of thing. So I had a couple stories about him, and then I came up with the gargantuan stories about a super guard. He was human at one point, but he was a criminal at one point. And then they convert him into a super guard by making him bigger and stronger and tougher and totally wiping his psyche so that he's a slave of the state. It's, of course, the story's about him breaking free of slavery. That was a two-issue book. And then I did the Prison and Planet series, which ended up being 200 pages, which I thought was pretty good for a homemade comic book. These were all printed on photocopy machines, so sort of my own versions. And then one day, in the middle of drawing that story about the prison and the planet, about being in prison when nuclear war starts, a character showed up in the story. I had no idea it was coming. This guy. As you can see, that's the first Tazio version of Tazio as he exists in Armageddonquest. The concept of Armageddonquest I didn't have yet, that he was the Antichrist instead of the son of Satan. But once I'd done that, I finished the 200-page prison story and said, do I want to do a Tazio story? It's going to be too long. I figured it would be another 200 pages. But I started anyway, and there it is. That was the absolute first version of Tazio. And halfway through the process of writing that, I met Michael Dowers in Seattle with Starhead Comics.
It was his wife that saw you
It was his
first.
wife. She was running the photocopy machines I was doing my copies on. And so Jan introduced me to Michael, and then he wanted to publish it, and then he did. He did 2 issues of what I had already written for Starhead Comics. That was the first and the second. And that was it. He ran out of money. By that time I had moved to Denmark. But I was still working on the story. I was up to about page 700 or something like that by then. I just couldn't stop. But I didn't think anything would come of it. And actually, I finished all 900 pages before I even knew it was going to be published in any normal way. And then one day I got a letter from Rob Horan at Sirius Comics. And he said, I've just seen these 2 Starhead issues. And I think it's the best thing I've ever seen, etc., etc. Do you want me to publish it? Okay, I thought, yeah. And what happened then was, of course, this trilogy of Armageddonquest, with covers by Joe Michael Linzer, who's one of Sirius's big hitters. He's still productive, actually. And so it was sold as that, but it wasn't Garfield. I didn't make a whole bunch of money on it. It was, I was proud of the story. I thought it was good. And most people who have read it all the way through, got through all the text. It's long stories, 900 pages of dense words and primitive drawings. But everybody who went all the way through, they thought it was really great. And then finally, Dave Baxter in California wrote to me several times in praise of Armageddonquest. And then one day he said, could I put it on the net? Well, okay. I had my own website, which I had all sorts of comic books, but not Armageddonquest. I wasn't putting that one on the web because I wasn't sure if I could actually someday make money at it or not. So I was holding back on that, and he wanted to do it. So I said, all right, go for it. So that's why we're doing this here.
But why started the whole story? Wasn't it when you were about 11 years old?
Oh yeah, my reaction. Okay, this story is a reaction against religion, and a lot of people do that. But mine was a story my wife Mariana wants me to tell because she thinks it's a cool story, and it is sort of. I was at Bible camp, I think 9 or maybe 10. And I came from a religious family. My father was one of 11 kids, and all of them except for him were missionaries. They went to Africa and India to do the holy work. And so I ended up, I was invited to a Bible camp. And my cousin, who was about 25 at the time, he was there. So it's a family thing. I should do it. So I went. And I liked my cousin. He was an okay guy, and I looked up to him. He's a grown-up. And one night, as sitting around the campfire with all these innocent young Bible camp kids, he gives a presentation where he's got these two packages. He's got this big glitzy package with shiny ribbons and tapes on it, and he has this little brown wrapped clump, which looks really uninteresting. And he says, well, which one would you choose? And it's a Bible camp, so you can figure it out. The big glitzy one is worldly materialism, and the little brown one without any fizz at a fraz, that's the Word of God. Yeah, okay. So, of course, all of us kids go, we'll take the big one. But, so he takes the big one, and he throws it into the campfire, and it's burning up. He says, that's Satan's work. If you choose that, the same thing will happen to you. You will burn in hell forever and ever and ever. God. It says, and if you walk back to your tent tonight and stumble and fall and die before you've accepted the word of God, you too will burn forever and ever and ever in hell. And we walked back to our tent kind of carefully that night. I mean, we believed him. This guy's a grown-up and we're just kids. What do we know? So 10 years later, when I'm in university, of course, I have a reaction of, wait a minute, that's not fair. Adults shouldn't do that to kids. In fact, the whole concept of religion is kind of perverted. And so that started me on the kick of twisting religion around. And plus, religion is a great source of stories. Just look at Hollywood. They're making movies all the time about Moses and Jesus, and it's always a blockbuster. And that's what I'd like Armageddonquest to be.